Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're actually stepping away from the muddy trenches of World War I to explore a surprisingly relatable piece of history. Let's set the scene. It's August 1917 at the Balboa Park Marine Barracks. A young soldier named Lyle Carringer is just waking up for his very first day of actual duty. But, his battlefield isn't exactly what you might expect. It's a retail counter.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this is where history becomes incredibly human. We usually look at World War I through the lens of grand battles and sweeping movements, right? But today, we're zooming way in. We're looking at it through the totally universal, highly relatable anxiety of a first day on a new job. I mean, think about it. How do you handle demanding customers, incredibly strict bosses, and a ticking clock when you're literally in the United States military?
Well, Lyle's day begins long before the sun even thinks about coming up over those Spanish colonial rooftops. At 4 a.m., he's just lying awake in a half-dark bunk, feeling that nervous anticipation we all get before a big day. By 5:30, the bugle blasts, dragging the whole base out of bed, and before reporting for duty at 6:45, he's basically downing powdered eggs and chugging bitter, strong coffee in the mess hall. It's this quiet, sensory anchor right before the retail chaos begins.
He's reporting to the Post Exchange, universally known by everyone as the PX. Now, you gotta understand, this isn't just a shop. It is the absolute lifeline of the base. Serving everyone from enlisted men to civilian staff, it provides the daily necessities and, honestly, the small comforts that make rigid barracks life bearable. It's the one crucial hub where soldiers go to grab just a tiny, fleeting slice of civilian normalcy.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer culture shock. See, before the military, Lyle worked at Marston's department store, a super refined space with a modern central cashier and supreme polished courtesy. But the military PX, it is a totally different beast. It's loud, it runs on these heavy, clanking mechanical cash registers, and the clientele is hurried. They care far less about pleasantries and far more about just getting their tobacco and getting out.
And every tough job has a tough boss, right? Enter Corporal Raymond Briggs, the supervisor waiting for Lyle at 6:45 a.m. Briggs is this compact, highly efficient 30-year-old guy with a veteran's economy of motion, a pencil perpetually tucked behind his ear, and a weary, cynical expectation of mistakes from new privates. He knows Lyle's background as a civilian auditor, and he expects absolute perfection. Right off the bat, Briggs takes Lyle on a rapid-fire tour of the wood-paneled room. Everything is organized with strict military precision. The top shelf holds the high-demand stuff, your Lucky Strikes and Bull Durham rolling tobacco. The middle shelf is all shaving supplies, like Gillette razors and Menon's Talk. And finally, the bottom shelves house the ultimate morale boosters, Hershey bars, hard candies, and the absolutely essential stationery for writing home. Tucked away at the far end of the room is the soda counter. It's like a little oasis, offering Coca-Cola and ginger ale. But the standout item here, lemon phosphate. Briggs makes a point to mention that this tangy drink is highly popular with the officers. It's crazy how specific flavors like that just instantly transport us back to 1917, showing exactly how these men found brief refreshment during their day.
Of course, an efficient military operation requires rigid boundaries. And Briggs' strictest rule? Money orders are issued from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. only. Period. No exceptions, not even for entitled officers who barge in claiming their business is an emergency. Anyone who has ever worked customer service knows exactly what this feels like. Enforcing store policy against an angry customer is a truly universal experience. Right before leaving Lyle to run his shift, Briggs lays down the ultimate stakes. You can practically hear the intimidation dripping from his voice. Your drawer opens with $30 in change. It closes at the end of your shift with the same $30 plus whatever you've taken in. Briggs is the kind of guy who reconciles every single drawer against every single sales slip. If the count is off, Lyle is in deep trouble.
So the crucial point is that exact starting balance, $30 in 1917 coins and bills. It acts like a ticking clock for the rest of Lyle's entire day. Every transaction, every piece of change handed back carries the massive weight of that final evening reconciliation. To Lyle, it represents not just money, but his attention to detail, his pride, and his worth to his veteran superior.
Fortunately, Lyle doesn't have to fly totally blind. He gets some much-needed help from PFC Hennessy, a red-haired Californian who's a former hardware store clerk with a real gift for retail. Hennessy hands Lyle the ultimate insider's survival guide. First, watch out for old sergeants. They know the stock and the prices better than you do. Second, keep an eye on nervous recruits trying to buy things without enough cash. And third, beware the evening officers.
because their patience is absolutely zero.
And man, Hennessy's advice arrives just in the nick of time, because by mid-morning, the slow trickle of customers becomes an absolute flood, known as the Sunday rush. The store is packed with young, uncertain recruits squeezing into awkward good uniforms, clutching little lists for stamps and writing paper. They are dead set on spending their hard-earned pay before heading into San Diego on Liberty.
And this brilliantly illustrates how Lyle survives the onslaught. He completely relies on muscle memory from his civilian days. Greet the customer, locate the item on those massive wooden shelves, physically punch the stiff keys on the heavy mechanical register, and accurately count back the change. Next man, next man. He locks into this automatic retail rhythm to keep the line moving, all while Briggs is silently watching from afar. As the rush finally dies down, the late afternoon brings a totally different vibe to the soda counter. While he's restocking tobacco, Lyle overhears lieutenants casually discussing Genea biplanes, brand new aviation training programs, and pilot candidates arriving at Rockwell Field just across the bay. It's fascinating. This casual chatter gives us a really tactile glimpse into the broader, rapidly advancing technological world of the First World War. By 7 p.m., the evening shift hits and the PX totally transforms into a bustling social hub. Men are buying cigarettes, reading newspapers, nursing their sodas, and exchanging barracks gossip. But hovering over all this social hour fun is that looming deadline. Finally, at 8:30 p.m., the doors close, the noise fades out, and Lyle begins his high-stakes, methodical end-of-shift register reconciliation.
This is the moment of truth. He clears the register, he sorts the bills, he counts the coins twice, he checks every single sales slip against his total. Then, Briggs walks over to do his own count. The result? Exactly correct. He is not off by a single cent. Briggs logs it and actually tosses him a rare, good first shift. Let me tell you, coming from a notoriously tough guy like Briggs, that is basically a standing ovation. Later that night, amidst the clatter and noise of the barracks, Lyle opens his writing kit to pen a letter to his darling Emily. And his dry sense of humor really shines through here. Actually, you know what? He writes, "I believe Corporal Briggs found this almost disappointing. I think he expected a new man to make at least one error he could document." It just perfectly shows his confidence and his wry understanding of his boss's ridiculously high standards. Let's move to and see how this builds, because this letter is so much more than just a summary of his day. It is his anchor. Lyle notes his upcoming Thursday day off, asks to hear all about Emily's week, and, this is the best part, he specifically requests her mother's gingerbread. It shows us how, even amidst the rigid military discipline, he fiercely holds onto his civilian identity through romance and the promise of a homemade treat.
So what does this all mean? We started out looking at World War I, but what we really found was a story about a guy who was anxious about a new boss, dealt with impatient customers, and ended his day writing a sweet letter about gingerbread. It really makes you think. Even in the high-stakes, rigid military world of 1917, isn't it our simple connections to home and the quiet pride of a hard day's work that truly sustain us? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring the history hidden right behind the counter.